protect, restore, and promote the sustainable use of terrestrial ecosystems, sustainably manage forests, combat desertification, halt and reverse land degradation, and halt biodiversity loss. This is the challenge issued by Sustainable Development Goal 15. Deforestation and forest degradation, continued biodiversity loss, and the ongoing degradation of ecosystems are serious consequences to our survival. And the world fell short on 2020 targets to halt biodiversity loss. The COVID-19 pandemic has shown that, by threatening biodiversity, humanity threatens its own survival. And while the rate of deforestation in tropical areas has slowed down in the past decade, vigilance and targeted efforts are needed to continue this trend. The proportion of forest area fell from 31.9% of total land area in the year 2000 to 31.2% in 2020, representing a net loss of almost 100 million hectares of the world's forests. Despite the losses in forest cover, the areas under protection all increased or remained stable at the global level, demonstrating global progress towards sustainable forest management. Globally, the risk of species extinction has increased by about 10% over the past 3 decades. The Red List Index, which ranges from a value of 1, which indicates no risk of extinction, to a value of 0, which indicates the extinction of all species, decreased from 0.81 in 1993 to 0.73 in 2021. Given all of this, what can we do to protect life on land better? And how are we so far in trying to achieve this? Hello science fans, my name is Chona and I'm your resident Filipina scientist. Join us in today's episode where we talk about SDG 15, Life on Land. The Philippines is one of 18 mega biodiverse countries of the world, containing 2/3 of the Earth's biodiversity and between 70% and 80% of the world's plant and animal species. The Philippines is also one of the world's biodiversity hotspots, with at least 700 threatened species, thus making it one of the top global conservation areas. According to the FAO definition, the Philippines has 7.2 million hectares of forest ecosystems, comprising approximately 24% of our total land area. It is, however, estimated that between the year 2000 and 2005, the Philippines lost 2.1% of its forest cover annually, representing the second fastest rate of deforestation in Southeast Asia and 7th in the world. The country's agricultural ecosystem is also noteworthy. The Philippines is part of the Center of Diversity for rice, coconut, mung bean, taro, and yam, as well as the center of origin and diversity of banana in Southeast Asia. Yet, this agricultural biodiversity is nowadays experiencing general decline, as is the land area devoted to these activities. Threats to biodiversity differ from one ecosystem to another. In the forest ecosystem, the primary causes of forest loss are commercial exploitation and population growth, and the introduction of invasive alien species. And yet, the observed decline is also the indirect result of the increased demand for food, land, and other agro-based resources. To help make our actions against climate change more concrete, SDG 15 has several key indicators. In this video, we will focus on how the Philippines has tried to address these challenges. The first challenge is to ensure the conservation, restoration, and sustainable use of terrestrial and inland freshwater ecosystems and their services. The policy landscape in the forestry sector of the Philippines lack provisions for enforcement and institutionalization. Legislations established a decade of forest lands being open to various extractive industries such as timber and lumber businesses, exportation, contracting, and land conversions. The second challenge is to promote the implementation of sustainable management of all types of forests, halt deforestation, restore degraded forests, and substantially increase afforestation and reforestation globally. In more recent years, the Philippines has made substantial efforts to reverse historical causes for deforestation. This commitment is exemplified by embarking on a massive tree planting and reforestation program called the National Greening Program. From a position as one of the top 10 deforestation countries, contributing to 17 to 20% of greenhouse gases globally due to forest cover loss in 2000, the country has since recovered with a modest forest cover increase of about 55,000 hectares a year. The next challenge is to combat desertification, restore degraded land and soil, including land affected by desertification, drought, and floods, and strive to achieve a land degradation neutral world. With climate change, the Philippines has become increasingly vulnerable to drought and desertification. The most obvious impact of desertification is poverty. People living in these areas have very low food production, income generation, and savings enhancement capacities. The Philippine Senate ratified the UN Convention to Combat Desertification on February 10, 2000, and it came into full force in May 2000. And so far, to address desertification, the Department of Agriculture and DENR have launched training campaigns for farmers to improve water use. They have installed water retention structures in watershed facilities, have campaigned against the excessive use of fertilizers, and have advocated for reforestation efforts. Another challenge is to ensure the conservation of mountain ecosystems, including their biodiversity, in order to enhance their capacity to provide benefits that are essential for sustainable development. As mentioned earlier, one of the key programs that addresses this is the National Greening Program. This program by the DENR Forest Management Bureau aims to reforest the estimated 7.1 million hectares of unproductive, denuded, and degraded forest lands through the participation and investment of private sector towards enabling private companies to achieve carbon neutrality. To complement this, they have started becoming stricter with the national requirement for students to plant at least 10 trees before they graduate from college. A pair of interconnected indicators are to take urgent and significant action to reduce the degradation of natural habitats and to promote fair and equitable sharing of the benefits arising from the utilization of genetic resources. And to help with this, the Philippines has the Protection and Conservation of Wildlife Program. Priority activities under this program include enforcement of wildlife laws, rules, and regulations, establishment and management of critical habitats, and conservation of threatened wildlife species, such as the marine turtles, dugong, tamaraws, Philippine raptor, crocodile, tarsier, Philippine cockatoo, and deer. This program also works closely with local communities in the area to promote sustainable farming practices and other commercial activities, to balance out the protection of the ecosystem with the needs of the human communities. The next challenge is to take urgent action to end poaching and trafficking of protected species of flora and fauna and address both demand and supply of illegal wildlife products. Recognizing the threats of the illegal wildlife trade to the country's biodiversity and economy, the Philippine government passed legislation, created interagency groups to combat illegal trade in wildlife and wildlife parts, and is building capacity across the law enforcement chain. Another challenge for SDG 15 is to introduce measures to prevent the introduction and significantly reduce the impact of invasive alien species on land and water ecosystems and control or eradicate the priority species. Biological invasions are growing at an alarming rate worldwide. Invasive species are second only to habitat destruction as drivers of biodiversity loss. The National Invasive Species Strategy and Action Plan, or NISAP, is our response to the call of the Convention for Biological Diversity to mitigate the threats of invasive species and reduce their pressure on biodiversity. However, financial, technical, and scientific capacities have to be developed and strengthened to ensure the efficient and effective implementation of NISAP. And finally, we also have the challenge of integrating ecosystem and biodiversity values into national and local planning, development processes, poverty reduction strategies, and accounts. And here, it would be good to highlight the efforts of local communities, such as the Women Waste Warriors in Paco, Manila, who recycle PET bottles into urban garden pots. We also see the increase in student-led efforts to spread awareness regarding the negative impacts of plastic waste to our land ecosystems, which shows the ripple effects of education campaigns and how we must maintain these in order to help achieve our SDGs. But STEM can also help with protecting life on land. Our engineers and innovators can help us design systems to grow food with less land, less water, and less resources in general. This would lessen the pressure of our need for food to the ecosystem. We also need to reach out and push to be heard by organizations and companies who continue to convert arable land into commercial and housing projects with no foreseen users or buyers. Especially with the knowledge that if our land ecosystems are completely degraded, the value of any commercial or residential property will disappear. We also advocate once more for citizen science efforts. The more people who are open and even excited about scientific ventures that seek to understand our forests, our farms, and our land-based ecosystems, the stronger our push would be for its sustainable use. And so science has spoken, and science will continue to speak. And in order to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, we have to try and listen. But what do you think? What kinds of innovations are needed in order to help achieve SDG 15? How can scientists and innovators collaborate with other sectors of society in order to help protect life on land better? Please share your thoughts in the comments section below.